Have you ever caught a man looking at you, and the moment your eyes met, he didn't look away? Maybe he held your gaze just a little too long. Maybe there was a slight smile. Or maybe he suddenly looked away, almost as if you'd caught him revealing something he wasn't supposed to show. And if you've experienced this, you may have immediately thought, "He probably likes me." But here's the part most people get wrong. Because eye contact can mean attraction, but the way a man looks at you can reveal much more than simple attraction. And if you've been interpreting those looks the wrong way, you may have been missing a signal that was right in front of you. So in this video, we're going to break down the different kinds of looks a man gives when he's genuinely drawn to you, and what each one may actually mean. And as you listen, think about the last man who gave you that kind of look. Because pay especially close attention to the final one. It's the look many women mistake for simple attraction, when it may actually reveal that you've gotten into his thoughts more deeply than he wants you to know. The first look to pay attention to is the caught-looking look. You know the moment. You're talking to someone, checking your phone, or simply minding your own business. Then you get that feeling that someone is watching you. So you look over, and there he is, looking directly at you. But the second your eyes meet, everything changes. He looks away. Maybe he suddenly checks his phone. Maybe he starts looking around the room as if he was never looking at you in the first place. You might even notice a small smile, a nervous laugh, or a quick adjustment of his clothes. Now, does that automatically mean he likes you? Not necessarily. People look at other people for all kinds of reasons. But here's what makes this moment interesting. His reaction after you catch him can sometimes tell you more than the look itself. If he immediately looks away and seems slightly embarrassed, nervous, or caught off guard, it could mean he didn't want you to know that he was paying attention to you. And that's where things get interesting. Because people don't always hide their attention for no reason. Maybe he's attracted to you. Maybe he's curious about you. Maybe he's been noticing you for a while but isn't confident enough to make it obvious. The important thing is to watch for a pattern. If it happens once, don't read too much into it. But if you repeatedly catch him looking at you, and every time, he suddenly becomes a little nervous or tries to pretend he wasn't watching, that's when the situation becomes much more interesting. Because sometimes, people can control their words. They can control what they say. But their eyes? Those can be much harder to control. And there's another kind of look that's even harder to fake. And if you've ever caught a man giving you this one, pay attention. The second look is harder to ignore. Because this time, he doesn't look away. You look at him. He looks at you. And neither of you looks away. Normally, eye contact has a natural rhythm. You look at someone, they look back, and eventually one of you naturally looks away. But sometimes, that rhythm changes. 1 second passes. Then another. And suddenly, you're both aware of what's happening. Have you ever felt that? That strange little moment where you're not even sure what you're supposed to do because you're both just looking at each other? This can be one of the more noticeable signs of attraction, especially when the eye contact happens repeatedly and doesn't feel uncomfortable. And pay attention to how he looks at you. If his expression is relaxed, his face softens, or there's a subtle smile, the look can feel very different from someone simply staring. It can suggest that he's comfortable letting you know that he notices you. But here's where you need to be careful. Eye contact by itself doesn't prove that a man is attracted to you. He could simply be confident, friendly, interested in the conversation, or naturally someone who makes strong eye contact. What makes it more meaningful is when the eye contact comes together with other signs. Maybe he keeps finding reasons to talk to you. Maybe he smiles whenever you look at him. Maybe he seems more aware of you when you're nearby. That's when one simple look starts becoming part of a bigger pattern. Because one moment can be coincidence. But when the same thing keeps happening, it's harder to ignore. And the next type of look is different. It's not about how long he looks at you. It's about what happens to his face when he does. The third look is much quieter. It's the soft look. This isn't the intense stare that makes you wonder what he's thinking. It's almost the opposite. When he looks at you, his face seems to relax. He's not obviously scanning your body or checking out your appearance. Instead, he seems completely focused on your face. And sometimes, you might notice something even more subtle. He smiles. Not a big, obvious smile. Just a small change in his expression, as if seeing you naturally makes him feel good. And that can be interesting because attraction isn't always about physical desire. Sometimes, the way someone looks at you suggests that they simply enjoy your presence. Maybe he feels comfortable around you. Maybe he likes listening to you. Maybe there's something about being around you that puts him in a better mood. And that's why there's an important difference between looking at someone's body and looking at their face like they're trying to remember the moment. One can be purely physical. The other can feel much more personal. Of course, you shouldn't assume that a soft look automatically means he's secretly in love with you. Some people naturally have warm expressions, and some people simply make strong emotional eye contact. But if you notice that his expression changes specifically when he looks at you, and you see it happening again and again, that's worth paying attention to. Because sometimes, the most revealing looks aren't the intense ones. They're the quiet moments when someone looks at you and seems to forget, for just a second, that they're supposed to hide how much they enjoy seeing you. And then there's a look that's even more revealing, because he gives it to you when he thinks you aren't watching. The fourth look is where things start getting really interesting. He looks at you when he thinks you aren't watching. Maybe you're across the room, talking to a friend. You're laughing at something, checking your phone, or doing something completely ordinary. You aren't trying to get his attention. You aren't even thinking about him. And then, almost by accident, you look up. And there he is, watching you. But this time, he didn't know you were going to look back. And that's what makes this moment feel different. Because when someone looks at you only after you make eye contact, it could simply be part of the conversation. But when you catch someone watching you while they think you aren't paying attention, it can suggest that their attention naturally keeps drifting toward you. So why does his attention keep coming back to you when he doesn't even know you're watching? It could be attraction. It could be curiosity. Or he may simply find himself drawn to your expressions and the way you interact with other people. Of course, one moment still doesn't prove anything. He could have been distracted. Maybe something simply caught his attention. That's why you should never build an entire story around a single glance. But if it keeps happening, you're talking to someone else, and he's watching. You're laughing, and he's watching. You walk into the room, and somehow, his eyes find you again. Now you're seeing a pattern. And patterns are much more revealing than isolated moments. Because sometimes, a person's attention goes somewhere before they consciously decide where they want it to go. And the next look takes that even further, because his eyes don't just find you. They follow you. The fifth look is one you can actually see happening in real time. His eyes follow you. Imagine you're standing across the room. You decide to move somewhere else, maybe to talk to a friend or grab something. As you walk away, you glance back. And for a moment, you notice his eyes moving with you. You change positions again. A few minutes later, you look over, and somehow, he's looking in your direction again. It's almost as if he keeps track of where you are without even realizing he's doing it. Now, does that automatically mean he's attracted to you? Someone might be watching because they're curious, familiar with you, or simply noticed you moving. But here's what makes this behavior interesting. You're occupying his attention even when you're not interacting with him. He doesn't need to be talking to you. He doesn't need you to be looking at him. Yet somehow, his attention keeps returning to where you are. And that's why you shouldn't focus on one glance. One glance can be coincidence. Repeated attention is the clue. If you notice this happening again and again, especially when it's combined with other things, like smiling when you make eye contact, finding reasons to come near you, or becoming noticeably more aware of you when you enter the room, it becomes much harder to dismiss as random. But there's another detail that's even more interesting. Sometimes, a man doesn't just follow you with his eyes. He checks your reaction. Something happens in the group. Someone tells a joke. Everyone laughs. And before he even reacts himself, he looks at you. Not necessarily because he wants you to notice him, but because, for some reason, your reaction catches his attention first. And if you notice that happening repeatedly, it can be a surprisingly meaningful detail. Because sometimes, the person we look toward first is the person whose reaction matters to us. And the next look reveals something even more personal, because this time, you can see the nerves. The sixth look is easy to miss because it happens in the middle of everything else. He looks at you during group conversations. Imagine you're sitting with several people. Someone tells a funny story, and everyone starts laughing. But instead of simply laughing and moving on, he looks straight at you. Or maybe someone says something surprising, and before he even reacts, his eyes find yours, as if he's checking to see what you thought about it. That tiny moment can be surprisingly revealing. Because when something happens, we often find ourselves looking toward the person whose reaction we're most curious about. Think about it. If something hilarious happens, who do you instinctively look at? If something awkward happens, whose face do you check? If you repeatedly notice that he looks at you first, it may suggest that your reaction matters to him. Maybe he wants to know if you found the joke funny. Maybe he wants to share the moment with you without saying anything. Or maybe, without even realizing it, he started paying closer attention to you than to everyone else in the room. Again, this doesn't automatically mean romantic attraction. Some people naturally connect more with certain friends or conversation partners. But there's a difference between noticing someone and unconsciously looking for their reaction. And if his eyes keep searching for you in a crowded room, you may be more important to his attention than you realize. But this next look can reveal something even deeper than attraction. Because sometimes, a man isn't just looking at you because he finds you attractive. He's trying to figure you out. The seventh look is different because it doesn't feel like he's simply admiring you. It feels like he's trying to figure you out. Maybe you're sitting quietly while everyone else is talking, and you notice him watching you. Not staring in an obvious or uncomfortable way. Just paying attention. He seems interested in your reactions. When you laugh, he notices. When you become quiet, he notices that too. If your expression changes, his eyes seem to catch it. It's almost as if he's trying to understand the person behind the appearance. And that's an important difference. He may not simply be thinking, "She's attractive." He may be wondering, "Who is she? What is she really like? What is she thinking right now?" That kind of curiosity can happen when someone finds you genuinely interesting. Maybe you're not completely predictable to him. Maybe there's something about your personality that he hasn't figured out yet. And instead of asking directly, he may simply find himself watching those small moments. Of course, don't assume every curious look means romantic interest. Someone can be interested in your personality without wanting a relationship. But if he repeatedly watches you when you're being completely yourself, especially when you're not trying to impress anyone, that can be a meaningful sign of genuine interest. Because physical attraction often makes someone notice you. Curiosity makes them keep noticing. And there's an even more revealing moment to watch for. What happens after the conversation ends? Because sometimes, you walk away thinking the moment is over. But he keeps looking. The eighth look is one of those moments that can stay in your mind for hours. You finish talking to him. The conversation is over. You smile, say goodbye, and walk away. And then, for some reason, you turn around. He's still looking at you. Not because you're talking anymore. Not because he needs your attention. You're already walking away, yet his eyes are still following the moment. And that's what can make this look feel so powerful. Because technically, The interaction has ended. But his attention hasn't. Maybe he's attracted to you. Maybe he's curious about you. Maybe he simply enjoyed the conversation and wasn't quite ready for the moment to end. There are several possible explanations. And that's important to remember. One look doesn't tell you exactly what someone feels. But if you notice this happening repeatedly, it becomes much more interesting. You walk away after a conversation, and he watches. You leave a group, and you catch him looking. You turn around unexpectedly, and once again his eyes are on you. At that point, you're noticing a pattern rather than a random moment. And here's where you need to protect yourself from one of the easiest mistakes to make. Don't build an entire love story from one look. A glance can be misunderstood. A stare can be misread. Sometimes what feels like chemistry can also be influenced by what we hope is happening. So don't ask yourself, what does this one moment mean? Ask yourself, does he keep showing the same kind of attention over time? Because attraction isn't really proven by one dramatic look. It's revealed through consistent behavior. And that's why the next part is so important. Because sometimes a man's eyes can seem obvious, but his actions tell a completely different story. So, if a man keeps looking at you, it's completely natural to wonder what it means. Maybe he's attracted to you. Maybe he's curious. Maybe he feels something he's not quite ready to express. But don't let a look become more important than his actions. Because someone can give you intense eye contact, smile at you across the room, and make you feel a powerful connection, and still never make a genuine effort to get to know you. So notice the look. But don't build your expectations around it. Watch what happens next. Does he make an effort? Does he treat you with respect? Does he consistently show that he wants to be part of your life? Because that's where the real answer usually lives. Attention and intention aren't the same thing. His eyes might get your attention, but his actions should tell you whether you should give him yours. And now I'm curious. What's the most obvious look a man has ever given you, and did your interpretation turn out to be right?